Okay, everyone, it's now 1 o'clock, and I want to welcome you to Risk Management in Cooperative Education in O2. My name is Kelly Wolfenslow, and I am the lead O2 teacher at Shelburne Regional High School. And I've been in this role for about 4 years now. Just some housekeeping items that I'd like to go over with you folks. It's best that your camera and mics are off so we don't slow down any of the streaming and so on. Just a note about accessibility and language options. They're available in the top right-hand corner of the event portal. In the lower right hand on your screen is the option to pop out a video player. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat box, and I'll make every effort to note them and try to answer them. And hopefully my presentation won't go too long. I'm hoping maybe 30 minutes to 45 minutes tops. And also I'll make sure that my slide presentation is made available to you as well. And if you have any questions from this presentation, I advise you to contact your YPC after today's sessions if you have any questions. And also, please remember to complete the feedback form after the presentation here. So I just want to draw your attention to the chat box there. There is a link that I would like for you guys to click on. It's a Jamboard activity, but I'll let you know when to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to start presenting, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so risk management and cooperative education in O2. So the introduction here is in O2 and co-op, we have to consider the importance of risk management. Using effective due diligence will help you keep your students safe and reduce the possibility of injuries. It is important to ensure that all safety outcomes have been met by the students in co-op and O2. Equally as important is the completion of all required forms, for example, the consent form. Following our center and CSAP policy, as well as the directives of the Student Insurance Program, which is SIP, is essential. If anything should happen to a student involved in a community-based learning and due diligence is not evident, the RCE, CSAP, the school principal and teacher in question is liable. So I'm going to start off with a definition of what is risk management. It is identifying hazards in the workplace, and managing risk is an essential part of creating a safe work environment. Good risk management practices involve identifying, assessing, and controlling risks, followed by a regular review of the controls that have been implemented. So, of course, some of the possible hazards would be slip, trips, and falls, moving parts on machinery, ladders and heights, excuse me, and electrical. So here's my video I want to show you about understanding hazards. It's only a quick 2-minute video. So I'm going to click on it and present.
If we were to cross the road here, the hazard is being hit by a moving vehicle. Part of doing a hazard identification is looking at the potential consequence. In this case, it could be a serious injury or even a fatality.
But we're on a country road. I mean, the chances of being hit look pretty slim.
Right. That's part of the risk assessment. Because the traffic flow is very minimal, the risk is low.
Whoa! But if we were trying to cross the road here, the hazard is much worse.
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. The hazard is the same, and so is the potential consequence of a fatality. It's the risk that's changed. It's now higher because the traffic flow is much heavier.
Okay. The hazard is the thing or condition that can hurt us. In this case, the vehicles. And the risk is the likelihood that the hazard will cause injury or disease. So, what does that have to do with the regulation?
Hazards arise out of the work environment and work tasks. And until you know what the hazards are, you can't determine the risks. In the workplace, you have to identify all the potential hazards and then assess the risk they pose. For example, if you were pulling a heavy box off a high shelf, what are the hazards?
Well, if the box was stacked poorly, it could fall on you.
Or you might strain your back lifting the box. Or if you tried to climb up, you might fall.
Well, I didn't realize moving one box could involve so many hazards.
Right, there are often many hazards associated with a single task, and we need to assess the risk for each of them.
Okay, so following up on that, what I'd like for you to do is to, do a Jamboard activity. So that is in your, in the comment box or chat box on the side there on the right. If you would click on that and just basically answer the question, what you think some of the possible hazards could be in a O2 or for O2 students or co-op students. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Jamboard. You just would click to get a sticky note. So maybe let's just review and let's just take a few minutes just to think about what would be some possible hazards for O2 and co-op students. Maybe 2 or 3 would be good.
Kelly, there's no link there in the chat box.
Oh, it must have, okay, I'll do it again. I'll redo that. I put it in there once. Oops. Oh, it keeps going back to me on there. All right, just one sec. Won't let me get out of here. It's almost like it's frozen.
Kelly, if you can,
What?
Kelly, if you can't get it to work, sorry to interrupt you. If you can't get it to work, maybe people could just write in the chat box an example of what they think a hazard or a risk would be for co-op in O2.
Absolutely.
And then maybe,
yeah, absolutely.
Just
yeah.
If people could just write it in the chat box and maybe you could read them aloud after.
Yes. Okay. That sounds good. All right. So folks, sorry about the technical difficulties there. So I'm just going to go. Something's wrong with my computer, it seems.
Okay, there's one there now, Kelly, on mixing chemicals, which is an excellent example of a risk, slips and falls.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, absolutely. That's awesome. Now, when I'm not seeing any of the responses, Jill.
I'll read them to you, Kelly.
Yeah, I got them, honey.
Yeah.
I got them. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, your Jamboard activity is now there.
Oh, is it? Oh, awesome. Awesome. I guess maybe I forgot to click on it. Okay.
So it is the link is there now.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Okay.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. My apologies, folks. I'm trying my best here. Just a little glitch, just to make me realize I'm human, I guess. So somebody said chemicals. Absolutely. Very true.
The Jamboard is view only. It does not have editing on it.
Oh.
But that's okay, Kelly. I think all the answers are in the chat if you just want to go through the list, or if you can't see it, I can.
Absolutely. That's what I'll do. No problem. Review. Okay, Jill, I'll get you to do that for me, dear, please.
Sure. I'll read off some of the answers that are in the chat boxes. So some of the risks, I guess I'll go backwards in the list here. As working from heights, definitely a risk.
Yeah, definitely.
Let me see. I'm going backwards in time here. Not having the proper safety training is a risk. Lifting items that are too heavy or lifting incorrectly. Not knowing how to use the machinery or using it without permission or training. Tripping hazards, crossing wires, even transportation to and from the placement, motor vehicle accidents, slip and falls, and mixing chemicals as stated previously. So great examples of some of the hazards.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Yes. And so these are some of the things that I thought about when you're in O2. You know, we have to take all kinds of consideration into field trips and when they're out on job shadowing, CBL activities and volunteering, of course. And then in the work placement for co-op, it's unfamiliar equipment, being out on the water, and of course being around chemicals. But as you guys participated in this, there are many, many more examples. So thank you for that and bearing with me about my Jamboard. My apologies. So
Kelly, just so you know, we can't.
Yeah.
Kelly, we can't see your screen.
Can't see my screen now?
No, you have to reshare your screen.
I thought I did already. What's going on here? Oh. Okay. Let me do that again. Oh my God. Okay, window. Okay. Share. Can you see it now, folks?
We don't see your PowerPoint. We see your SLA speakers checklist. You
Oh.
get the wrong window open, bud.
Okay. Let's do this again. I've lost my... Can you guys see it now?
You got it. We're good.
Oh my goodness. Sorry about that, folks. So let's talk about due diligence. And so what that is teachers shall take all reasonable precautions under the particular circumstances to prevent injuries or incidents in the workplace. So this refers to the care, caution, or action a reasonable person is expected to take under similar circumstances. So what examples that would be for us as O2 and co-op teachers is completing paperwork, ensuring students prior to engaging in the workplace experiences have completed pre-placement curriculum outcomes associated with workplace expectations and legislation, and risk management and safety, and ensuring students have required certifications such as fall protection. So it's really, really important that you are aware of when you're where your students might be going in for a co-op placement, that you make sure that they have all the regular certification they need to participate safely in the placement. So I'm going to talk about SIP, and this is a school insurance program. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it before, but it is very, very important for us to be aware of this and use this as co-op and O2 teachers. So the school insurance program, SIP, is a non-for-profit organization that manages all aspects of property and casualty related insurance for the regional centers of education of Nova Scotia and the CSAP and the Nova Scotia Community College. So it's really important that we get familiar to using SIP. So when you log into SIP, parents and students, they don't need to have a username or password, but for teachers and staff, we do. So we have our username as SIP and our password is student. So I thought if everything works okay, I would take you through some of the website with you and just work around it so you could understand. So if there's any technical issues, just let me know right away, please, Jill. So we're going to log in, and of course we're going to use our username and then our password. How am I doing there, Jill?
You're doing great. We can see everything.
Okay, you can see everything? Good. I'm just a little nervous. I'm scared to death I'm going to do something and mess it up. Okay, so basically this is where we would look around and get information from. Okay, and they talk about teachers and staff, and then underneath teachers and staff, we have proof of insurance, incident report forms, risk management, trips, CBL, staff and board news, and FAQ. So what we're going to do is we're first going to click on, let's click on risk management. And as you can see here, if we look under advice, these are all the topics that we can look at and they will give us information. So if you look here under consent forms, you click here, and it got downloaded for me. Okay, so this is a consent form, and either your center of education probably have a one that you use anyway for your board, but these are just some of the things that they have there. They talk about school trips, fundraising, watercrafts, accident insurance, aviation, and I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about some of these shortly, but I just wanted to show you about the advice and under risk management. Okay, they talk about weather. Okay. So then one of the things that we have to talk about or look at is proof of insurance. And so when we look at proof of insurance, this is where we would maybe we would ask for an online request for insurance. And this is where you would go. So you're going to click on online request, certificate of insurance. And then this is where you go through and you fill out, this is like a fillable form. And so it has the name of the Regional Center for Education and the name of the school or campus and the contact person, a phone number and email address. So here, this is where you would fill out about where the entity of the company or where the student is going, and with detailed information of a contact person and telephone number, email address. And then in here, you'll see the event, function, activity. You're just going to fill in a little brief description of what the student is doing, the location, the date, and then of course the liability. And then you would submit, and then you would receive an email back from those folks with the proof of insurance. All right. And then, and when we talk about proof of insurance too, there's $1 million, $2 million, and it can go as high as $5 million for that. So incidence reports as well. This is where we would look at incident report forms, and this is usually done. Of course, we can't submit anything here, but I'll just show you what it looks like. And usually you would do this in conjunction in the past with, I have done it with my principal and filled it out together there. All right, so that is your incident report form. So it's pop-down menus and of course filling in the names and all the required information. Now I apologize if I'm going too fast. I guess maybe I might be a tad nervous. That's why I'm talking way too fast maybe. And we did look at risk management where we look at advice there. And I'm just going to show you this as well. This is some information about CBL. And these are questions that that are concerned with community-based learning. And so there's questions that have been asked. And then, of course, there are responses to those. So and here it's in my PowerPoint as well. It says, what is the normal amount of insurance required by host employers for liability insurance? As you can see, the normal amount is between $1 million and $2 million. And in rare cases, the host employer may ask for $5 million. Okay, and which can provide which they can provide if the host employer has not specified an amount. Use $1 million. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint here. Okay, so this is where we would see we logged on, okay, which I showed you live. And then we talked about the amount of insurance required by the host employers. The normal amount, again, is $1 million, okay? Then, of course, I quickly went through about providing proof of insurance and the procedure. So basically, you're going to go to the SIP site. You're going to click the teacher and staff bar menu, your username, your password, and you're going to click on proof of insurance. And then you just fill out the required information, okay? And again, it takes maybe perhaps 3 to 5 business days to hear back as well, okay? So here, how we would do, you click for proof of insurance, students on work experience. And then you continue on by filling out information about the student placement and make sure you're really specific about it. And also, just before I forget, this proof of insurance will also be an email to the employer. I forgot to mention that. How we doing there, Jill? Any questions in the chat box?
You're doing fine, and no, there's no questions right now.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so of course I got ahead of myself when I looked when I scrolled through the SIP form, but this is if a student gets hurt. Okay, you again have to go online to SIP and complete and make sure that you complete the incident report as soon as possible or practical. And immediately, if medical attention required or injuries are to head, neck, or back, not to be completed by the injured party, copy to be shown to the school principal, refer parents to student accident insurance on SIP webpage, and that would be found under parents and students, and say as little as possible about the cause of the incident, and it is okay to follow up with parents to see how the injured child is doing. Don't speak to any investigators, adjusters, or lawyers unless they have been assigned by SIP, and do not give incident reports to anyone, including parents or students, and never admit liability. So when we talk about planning a trip and getting ready to do a trip, make sure that you consult your YPC to talk about the proposed trip. Consult SIP website to answer any questions you have. Okay, so that's where you can go and either go to the frequently asked questions or the advice section there. And when you do your consent form to be signed by parents and to be sent home and you take with you when you go, describe the risks, include all activities, level of supervision, special equipment or clothing, and if staying at a hotel, make sure you add the name and address of the hotel. This would also be the same for flights. So make sure when you fill out your consent form that you give as much detail as possible. And you can also go and look, of course, on SIP and look at what some of the detailed risks could be to help you fill out your form. And then, okay, if there's any transportation questions, you should really contact your center's transportation department, okay? And if you're not using the center's transportation and you're having like drivers or a taxi or whatever, please make sure that the drivers have completed a J or K forms. That's essential, okay? And that you can get those in the office of your school. Any questions there? Okay.
No questions, Kelly. You're good.
Okay, just moving on. So I've already showed you this about risk management, and you would select advice to review many of the topics. So I really suggest that you take the time and poke around the website and look at all the drop-down menus and information that's made available. So the more information you have under your belt, the easier it will be when you need to fill out some forms. So under click for a CBL, this section has been created for co-op teachers when their students are participating in CBL, community-based learning. And then, of course, if you have FAQ questions or frequently asked questions, that was towards the end of the bar there under the SIP website. There is a variety of questions with answers that may help you out. So especially when we're talking about marine placements, because there's in detailed things we need to follow for that. Okay, so again, take the time and go through the SIP site and become familiar with it. So talking about marine emergency and domestic vessels, so MED-DVS, I'm sure some of us have heard this many, many times, but the Marine Emergency Duties course is required for students on any boats used in the fisheries. Students on the following vessels that are operating in open water are not are out for longer than 1 day also required to take the MED course. So if there's kids doing, students doing this, we need to have the MED DVS for if they're going on Navy boats, Nova Scotia ferries, Coast Guard, barges, and tour boats. If the vessel will remain docked, the MED course is not required. Here's another one that a lot of questions that have been asked too, and it talks about, are students on co-op placements allowed to operate or drive vehicles owned by the host employer and the host employer's customers? No. Students cannot operate or drive any vehicles or off-road vehicles. This includes all vehicles owned by host employers, as well as host employers' customers' vehicles. It is important to understand that operating a vehicle includes more than just driving it. It includes anything that changes the state of the vehicle, such as turning it on, changing gears, or being in the driver's seat and rolling down the windows. So that's really, really important to know, especially when students are out doing mechanic placements. And just remember that. And again, you can find this on SIP. The only exception is to this, though. The students under the direct supervision of the host employer may operate and drive farm tractors and or skid steer loaders, a bobcat, that are owned by the host employer, are not plated, licensed for the road, and used only on private land. Students cannot operate, drive, or a tractor or skid steer loader, a bobcat, on a public road or even to cross the road, nor can they drive or operate any that are plated or licensed. If the farm tractor or skid steer loader is plated or licensed, there is no coverage for the student to operate them under SIP. Are students allowed to operate a ride-on lawnmower or a push mower on a work placement? So yes, as long as they follow the following conditions are met. Sufficient training is given to the students. Proper personal protection equipment is worn. Safety glasses are worn, and boots and long pants are worn while operating the mower, and no baggy pants are to be worn. Airport tours. Any tour of any airport must be referred to SIP. The reason for this is because coverage is not automatic and has to be approved on an individual trip basis by insurers prior to the commencement of the trip. This is the process for both O2 and regular school trips at airports. So typically the following information must be submitted: the name of the airport, the date, what will the students be doing, how many students, age grade level of the students, will students be airside, and confirmation that the tour is guided by the airport staff. So there are frequently asked questions from teachers, okay? Make sure you contact SIP whenever you have questions such as chainsaw usage. Students should be trained and certified by the Forestry Safety Society instructor or equivalent. A certificate of insurance should be obtained from the Forestry Safety Society or equivalent for their instructor while working within the scope of their duties. Any informed consent and all other cooperative related forms should be sent to the parents of the student involved, outlining full details of the activity. See a typo there, I gotta fix. Confined space. No co-op students are ever permitted to work in a confined space. Never, never, never. So the question is, what is confined space? The Nova Scotia Occupational Health and Safety Regulations define confined space as an enclosed or partially enclosed space. So A, not designed or intended for regular human occupancy. B, with restricted access or exit, and C, that is or may become hazardous to a person entering it due to its design, construction, location, atmosphere, or the materials or substances in it or other conditions. Note that to be considered a confined space, all three requirements must be met. Okay, so do not let your students do any confined space. So these are some common examples of confined spaces. There is sewers, silos, empty tanks, and engine rooms on a fishing vessel. Are students allowed to take confined space training as part of an O2, as part of a co-op or O2 class? No. Confined spaces training is not permitted. Overnight co-op trips, if possible, avoid if all possible. And this also requires pre-approval from your youth pathways consultant. Students must be supervised overnight by a RCE employee or parent. Students must be supervised at all times, never left alone, and only covered by SIP insurance during work hours, not off hours, evenings and night. Now, this is really important as well, is co-op in a private home or business in-house. Concern is when there's only the host and co-op students on site, no other employees. Ensure the student has a cell phone and establish a safe word so the student can use with you if you visit it, if you are to visit or they contact you from the work site, home in this case. Okay, so that concludes my my PowerPoint. Does anybody have any questions?
There aren't any questions in the chat box, just so you're aware, Kelly.
Okay, yeah, I'm back on the screen. I've stopped sharing my screen now, folks. And I'm just looking. So again, folks, I do apologize for not having the Jamboard working as efficiently as possible, but I hope you won't hold that against me. Jill, am I missing some of the questions there, dear?
No, you're not. There's none in the chat box.
Oh, okay, okay. Does anybody want me to go over anything that I went too fast over, or not? If you want, like, I can just go through some more SIP stuff if you like. Can you please review the expectations for overnight? Yes, I can certainly do that. Absolutely, I can do that. Overnight. So basically, overnight co-op trips, you should try to avoid if all possible. It requires pre-approval of your youth pathway consultant. Students must be supervised overnight by a Center for Education employee or parent. Students must be supervised at all times, never left alone. And basically they are covered during working hours by SIP and not on off hours, evening or night.
Could I add to that, Kelly?
Absolutely.
So overnight co-ops are not preferred at all. And I would highly recommend you avoid them. And as a YPC, I was asked, as an example, I was asked once about a student wanting to do overnight because the student was doing their co-op placement in a summer camp. And it was a lot of back and forth and gathering information to get it approved. There's a lot of things to consider, a lot of risk that needs to be mitigated. So in this case, the student in the end was permitted to do an overnight camp. However, the only reason he got permitted to do it was because his mother was his host. She was staying overnight at the summer camp with the student in the same room. It was just the two of them, and it was agreed upon, and everybody was aware that only the hours during the daytime when the student was engaged in activities with the other students, those were the only hours the student could claim for co-op purposes. It becomes very tricky when you're talking about sleeping over as part of a co-op experience. And we get asked questions about this quite a bit because there's sometimes where host employers are going to conferences and they want to take the student with them. And anyway, in our case, I'm based in Yarmouth, and sometimes we have a student from Yarmouth who wants to go to Halifax to a conference with their host for an overnight. And that is really tricky. You need a Tri-County Regional Center for Education chaperone in that case, or a parent, and there's a lot of paperwork. I basically would avoid it if at all possible, but if you think it's a great opportunity for a student and you don't want to pass it up, contact your YPC because you will need to provide a lot of information in order to get it approved.
Thanks, Jill. And isn't it also, they've also encouraged, if you do it overnight with like students, that suggestion has been made also like to hire like a security person?
The security person is for field trips, Kelly, not for co-op.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. Sorry. My bad.
If you're going to, as an example, Yarmouth High School is going to Halifax on an overnight trip. And they're visiting several post-secondary institutions. At the hotel, SIP would tell you that you're supposed to hire private security to monitor the hallways and students aren't leaving in the middle of the night. Yeah. That's a separate concern. It's not co-op in that case. We're talking about an O2 trip in that case.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But it's good to know that if you're on an O2 trip, like, and if you're planning to stay overnight, for sure. Any other questions there, Jill?
Yes, there is a question. Where will we find your presentation for future reference? Karen, your question. My understanding is that as presenters, we've all been asked to share our files, and you will have access to all of them afterwards. They will be shared, so you can get this information following. I'm not sure if they contact you with an email. I'm assuming yes. It's the first time we're using this platform, but I do know we were all asked to provide our PowerPoints and our files so that participants could access them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can certainly contact me directly if you want as well. But I will be uploading this shortly by 2 o'clock, hopefully, and have it done and available for everybody if they choose to look at it.
So there's another question from Rebecca. Are there any exemplars of trip forms that have been done particularly well, i.e. with lots of potential risks and details? Rebecca, I'm not sure, Kelly, you might have an example, but I do know, Rebecca, on the SIP website that if you search around in there, they have provided a list of potential risks that maybe you hadn't, anybody might not think of when it comes to going out on a trip. Some of them are specific ones. Like when you're dealing with water, for example. But there is a list of potential risks on the SIP website that you can look at to develop the consent form.
Yeah, absolutely. That becomes more familiar with you when you use the SIP site. But yes, definitely, sometimes we overlook things and don't really think about like some of the hazards that could be. It could be as simple as a bug bite, you know. It could be even you know, being around car sickness, bus sickness, whatever the case may be. But yeah, these are all kinds of risks that are associated when you do a field trip with your co-op with your O2 students.
And Kelly, I'm not sure if you mentioned airports and being around water, but in the frequently asked questions section on the SIP website under CBL, the FAQ, there are questions there about if you go on a trip that involves the water or the airport, or if it's a co-op placement that involves the airport in particular, you need to make sure you follow all the policy that is on there regarding SIP. So for example, if you go to the airport with your O2 class on a field trip, which I highly recommend, but is extremely difficult to get in there because they're so booked up when they do allow people to go in. They need to be notified at SIP that you're going. It is okay to go to the airport on a tour, but they need to make sure you have the insurance coverage in place. They need to go through their broker. So you have to tell them you're going to the airport on that tour. So anytime it revolves aviation, make sure that you have notified SIP, and their contact information is on their website.
Yes, I did go over that a little bit ago. Yes, that's true. There are. And again, I'm so glad that we have the SIP to see that information as well. And if you're in doubt about anything, and you're sure you weren't able to find it on the SIP site, always you know, ask your YPC you know, to get information, to bounce off ideas, and so on. They're there to help you. If anybody wants to, you know, email me and things, I can certainly make my email available as well. No other questions there? Okay, I've stopped sharing there. Well, folks, I hope that I didn't rush through too fast for the presentation. But again, like I said, it will be made available. And this concludes my presentation. So I hope you guys are enjoying the SLA, and I hope that mine are the little technicalities that I had. I hope that the information that I provided to you helped. And again, you know, don't be afraid to check out the SIP site and look through that. It's a very, very beneficial tool and very helpful. I'm going to sign off, and I'll make arrangements to upload my PowerPoint. And I thank you for your time, and I hope this information was beneficial to you in some way or another. Again, my name's Kelly Wolf-Enslow, and I'm the lead O2 teacher at Shelburne Regional High School. And you can find me there. And I thank you for your patience and your time. And I hope to see you guys all again real soon. So have a good afternoon and enjoy the rest of the SLA.